This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey guys, I'm David.
I am Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about approaching mindset from a male point of view, like what as a man you should be kind of thinking about when you are kind of going to approach women, that be in bars or clubs or in the street or anything like that. But we'll just dip into our podcast and what it's about in general. So for those who haven't listened before, so our podcast is really about how you can show up in your dating life and just be your authentic self and like live out of that and really enjoy who you are and communicate honestly and openly with the people that you meet along the way, instead of coming from that paradigm, which I think is like really prevalent in our society now, of that you have to be a certain way to be successful and you have to say certain things to be successful. You have to have a certain money to be successful. When actually we think this is all wrong because it comes from an idea that we're all broken and there's something wrong with us. And we just don't really agree with that from our own experiences, actually. And we feel that like you and I, we all have our natural tools when it comes to communication and giving love and receiving love to have beautiful relationships and deep connections with the people we meet, whether that be in long-term relationships or very short-term relationships. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Very good.
Cool. So as we said before, today's episode is about mindset. And this is something that me and Ahmad were talking about earlier, is like, how, because obviously, and we're still in that kind of paradigm now in society where men approach women. Well, in the Western world, like in the UK, like I know across Europe, it's very different from my experience of traveling there. But we're still very much like that here in the UK. And I know for our American listeners, I know there's a few of them there. This is very much the masculine way. The masculine energy shows up in terms of it is leadership.
Yeah, but I mean, even if women do approach you, I wouldn't wait around until one does.
No, I think that would be. I find that to be quite a. That's not a very good strategy.
There are situations and there are ways in which one can entice, but
enticement,
yeah. But I think a strong tool is to know how to do it yourself.
And to
relying
entice.
upon that. Yeah, because actually there are people I've met, not many, but a few. I mean, I guess there are a lot of guys who want this and desire this, but there are people that do just as they want to somehow have women approach them all the time. And yeah, of course it does happen, but it's like,
pretty rare.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it does happen, but it's not like a foolproof plan. It's like you have a much stronger hand if you have a good approaching mindset,
and also you can be responsible for that. You can have control over that. Control is a word I don't always like to use, but you can have control over the people that you approach. Whereas if you're just waiting for women to approach you, then you're very much I feel you're in a very passive position. In it's like wishing and hoping that money will fall from the sky and fill up your bank account instead of like, I'm going to go and work. Cool. So what's our first point, Ahmad?
So the first thing is not assuming that she won't want to talk to you. And from my experience, like the key here is like, you don't actually know. You really have no idea. And the sad thing is for a lot of guys, especially, if you feel quite shy, or this is like you're moving into doing things you're not used to doing, there's an assumption that they won't be interested, or what you have to say isn't interested, or even worse, who you are as a person isn't interesting. And it's funny because we were listening to something from Hayley Quinn earlier, and she was doing this, was it DM? What did she call it?
Dating DMs.
Dating DMs, yeah. Dating DMs. And someone asked a question about confidence with sex, and how can they be confident if they've not had much experience, so on and so forth. And it's kind of like the same thing with conversations. It's like people getting caught up with, well, how can I be confident if I don't know that I've had this conversation before, or they're going to be interested, or this and that. And And that's the thing. It's like, well, actually, it's kind of similar advice, really. She had this whole thing about like being connected and two people co-creating.
Co-creating, yeah.
Yeah, and actually a conversation is also like a co-creation depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find fascinating when people think, oh, this person won't be interested, or that they won't have anything in common. One of the key things I discovered a while ago was that the one thing we all have in common is emotions.
Yeah.
And when we speak like passionately and emotively, then people can relate. They can really understand. They can really relate, even if they've never had any experiences similar to you. So this whole thing of like assuming that she won't want to talk to you, firstly, is to understand that it's more of a belief issue. That is, it's not a her issue. It's not she's not wanting to talk to you. It's a self-belief issue that like what you have to say isn't interesting, but really, you have a lot of things that you've experienced. If anyone who listens to this podcast is old enough to have had experiences.
Yeah.
So that's my take on this to begin with.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it's this way of kind of being like, she's better than me. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of that in the mindset of like, you know, she won't want to talk to you. And it's like, because she's better than I am. And I think a lot of that comes into the way often that men, and women do it too, and I can only talk. I often say as men, and very much the reason is because I'm a man. I've had my experience, and I have never experienced being a woman as much as I've wanted to. I have not yet tried. I'm not that committed to experiencing being a woman. So, but as a man, it's like we often look at a woman and be like, "Wow, she's really beautiful. She's really attractive, or she's surrounded by amazing people," and instantly we push her perceived value very high or well above our own. So instantly we go, she's really like desirable and I'm not desirable. And that instantly puts you in a position where you think you're lesser than her, which again is not in reality. It's all perceived in your mind, because for all you know, she's looked at you and thought, wow, that guy looks really hot and really cool and really cute. I wish he would come and speak to me. But, you know, I'm just this lonely woman who is uninteresting and, you know, has put you up high on a pedestal already.
It does go both ways. And in fact, you know, I'm definitely guilty of having done that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Especially when I was, you know, a lot shyer. And it was this assumption that I didn't have the worth, or I wasn't as good as others, or whatever. And yeah, the number of opportunities. I can remember one time I was in this club called Barrios in East London, and I'd gone out by myself. So it was like earlier in the night, and like everyone's in their little groups, because most people, not everyone, but most people come with friends and stuff. So I'm hanging out by the bar by myself. And there was a girl to my left, like a bit further away with some friends. And then later on in the night, I went over to her, and she said, why didn't you come over earlier? Didn't you see me waving at you? And I was completely oblivious. And it wasn't even a busy bar earlier.
Yeah.
But I was oblivious to the fact that she was waving at me or whatever. I had just been looking around, just in my own head, on my own, thinking about like, oh shit, like how's this not going to go? I'm by myself. Like,
yeah.
What? So fascinating how perception, I think that's something that's really important. What you just said there, Dave, is perception. Perception is king.
Yeah.
Because perception is like, well, perception can make and break what you like you actually approaching.
Yeah.
And it leads into our next point, which is fear doesn't mean that you can't take action.
Yeah.
And often you might perceive things to be a certain way, but one of the things I said right at the start is you don't actually know. It's not like on the table, like physical reality of like, well, how do you know how this is going to go?
Yeah.
So a lot of these things that we feel initially, the emotions and your feelings, aren't based in any particular reality other than our own minds and predictions. And the other interesting thing that I like about, that I heard about fear is it's your body preparing you to take action.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you start a car engine, the car, it doesn't go in, the car doesn't drive around cold.
Yeah.
It warms up, it heats up.
It gets ready.
And it's fascinating actually how often we take certain feelings and we attach meanings to them.
Yeah.
So this fear, it's like, well, I think it'd be the same as you were playing, I'll just use a a common example, but if you're playing a game of football or something, like you tend to have some anticipation, some anxiety, some fear, even but there's an enjoyment in the process. And there's also the great thing about when you're playing, in terms of playing a game of football, is you'll tend to go in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You actually go in. Whereas I think for a lot of guys, when it comes to dating, the fear makes them go, "Oh, I'm not going to play." It's a bit like going onto the pitch and then going, "Oh, actually, no, I'm not going to
do anything."
Yeah, I'm not going to play.
It's like it's quite interesting. I've been applying for a lot of jobs recently, and I've been doing a lot of kind of telephone interviews, and I did a face-to-face recently as well. And I realized that there's all this kind of fear and anxiety that kind of builds up in me, you know, around this.
Yeah.
And I'm able to just observe this a lot more because I simply have chosen to do so. I'm like, I was on the train on the way and I was like, oh, look at me. I'm feeling a bit scared and a bit fearful and anxious. And, you know, I even go over why now, because I know I don't go too far down the rabbit hole. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm afraid it's going to go badly. I'm afraid they're not going to hear what, I'm going to come across, or they're going to pull something out of my CV that I don't remember exactly. And then I remember, and then again, I let all that come up, and then I think, okay, what would I really love it to be like? And then I kind of imagine that as well, and then I'm able to just move forward.
That's the next point, actually. What would the ideal outcome be?
So yeah, it's like fear, that feeling of fear, it doesn't mean that you have to just like go, oh fuck, I'm afraid of this, so I shouldn't do it. It's like fear is like a sign of growth. It's like if you're afraid to do something and it's mean this is going to push you beyond your normal boundaries of comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you got like, it's like what David just said there about fear and the experience of it. I'm at a point now as well where I can sometimes not necessarily take action on the fear, but I can really just be with the fear and even the not taking action of it, and really just experience what it is to have fear without being attached to the whole, oh my God, I'm so scared. This isn't good. This is bad. It is just an emotion. And in most cases, I think what I thought Dave was going to say as well is like how you can have fear and then take the action anyway, really. And in most cases, if not all, and in fact, in all cases, the fear and what you're fearing never comes to fruition. Here's a little hack, a little tip on life. It's like whatever you're scared of or whatever you think is going to happen, it's never that. It'll be some other shit that happens. Like you think someone's going to come over and punch you in the face. It won't be that. It'll be like you spill your drink on yourself or something. Or something stupid like that. Yeah. So like life, I find, is more hilarious than we realize, and we give it time to show us. Yeah. And we worry that it's going to go a certain way, and we try and stop that by not taking action. But yeah, it's way more fun when you actually take action. So yeah, don't let the fear stop you, because you're missing out on the conversation, the experience, and even the number of times that we've been out and we've spoken to different people and pushed ourselves in different ways, like without even realizing we have like an expanse of experience just because of it. And I can tell you, like I've done some crazy level approaches where I did challenges where I've, from saying silly things like, do you have the time, whilst wearing a watch on my wrist, so people obviously know that I have the time and I'm still asking for the time, to literally going around and saying to people, hi, I think you're cute, would you like to fuck? And then, oh, right now. And then when they say, well, actually they said no most of the time. I managed to do it like 10 times. When they say no, you say maybe later. So here's an interesting fact about that challenge. So I went around and did this in London. And it was a raining day, and majority of people had umbrellas. And so I had shitloads of excuses not to do this, right? So when I say umbrellas, you can't see anyone's face, don't know who's who, what's what. I literally walked from Covent Garden down to Tower Bridge and back. Like It was a long ass day trying to just get the courage, do the exercise, get this thing done. And out of 10 people, the worst reaction I got. So most reactions were just like a girl would just smile and laugh and then just be like, no, thanks, and walk away. The worst reaction was a woman said, when she said no and I said maybe later, she said, you're annoying me now. All right. And I was like, cool, chill, I'm out. And that was the worst reaction, guys. Like literally, that was the worst reaction. The best reaction I got was when I said maybe, they said yes. I said maybe later, they said yes. And I was like, and I wasn't expecting that. And Dave's actually seen this in action actually when we were in Miami once.
Yeah. I just remember that.
That was funny. Yeah. So just to quickly wrap that one, like I was challenged to go over and say this same sort of line to this girl on the beach. And initially she was like confused and said no. And then later she came over and said,
"Hey, do you want to go in the water?"
Yeah. It was like she just came over and went, "Yeah, actually I changed my mind." I was like, what? In both these occasions, I completely lost my cool in the sense of like my own calmness and chill and leadership, because I was like, this is so unexpected.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being, you never know. So next point.
Imagine it's like imagining what the ideal outcome would be. This is a really good one, not for just approaching. This is a really good thing to do before dates as well. Especially when you're feeling very anxious and worried about how the date's going to go and what you're going to say and blah, 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 is actually to just sit and just spend a few minutes, like take 5 deep breaths. I always recommend this, 5 deep breaths, which will just kind of calm your mind down and make you a bit more present of where you are now. And then be like, just think to yourself, like, how would this go ideally? So in this instance of kind of approaching a woman in a bar, how would it go ideally? Like for you, it might be that, you get talking and you have great conversation, you're laughing and you have loads of things in common. And then maybe you leave and go for dinner, or you leave and go home, whatever it may be. But imagine that outcome in your mind. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that's exactly what's going to happen. I reckon if you approach enough women in your time, that it will happen one day, exactly how you vision it. But it puts you in a far better, calmer, positive frame of mind in comparison to the opposite, where you're trying to protect against the worst thing not happening, which might be like being ignored, or being kind of having a drink thrown at you, or being ridiculed or whatever. Because what will happen is, as you go over and you say hello and whatever you say next, your facial expression and your body language will be speaking of what's in your mind. So if your vision is of how well this is going to go, you're going to be in a lot more kind of relaxed and happy state with a smile on your face and so forth, in comparison to if your vision is like, how are they going to reject me? Right? Because if that's what you have in your mind, when you go over and you start speaking, you'll just have rejection written all over your face and body. You'll be kind of crouched over, almost like you're scared you're going to be attacked. Like a foxes. Like we have, if you're from London, there's foxes everywhere. Like I saw a fox today. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and there was a fox.
There's a lot of foxes around, yeah.
So, and foxes,
foxes than people,
and they can be in they hear a noise, they get quite scared, and they're like, you approach them, they're almost like worried about what you're going to do, and it's understandable. But when you're approaching a woman in a bar, that's not the sort of body language you want to go over with.
Yeah, there was something I was going to say and I forgot it now. I was on the same point. If it comes back to me, I'll say it later. So the next point is, you're going to go over and find out like what she's like, and not just this, because so often we build up an image, as concept of this person being perfect, and you don't actually fucking know. Like, you literally got no idea, and you're basing everything on just looks and appearance. And you know what? The older you get, the more you realize that looks and appearance by everyone is a huge facade.
Massive.
Like every single person. I remember, in fact, someone once saying this to me, and a good friend of mine, and she's a bit older than me, and she was like saying, yeah, everyone's got hang-ups. And I was a bit younger at the time, and I was like, really? And now I'm like, yeah, I see it, because you just realize that everyone's got something, and it's cool. So actually you're starting to become more discerning and actually going for quality. There's a saying, was it like, looks are common, character and personality is
rare.
Is rare, yeah. So this isn't just like random things from a Chinese
proverb. Fortune cookie,
yeah. Yeah, it's actually true. Yeah, it's just like it's the same as like, don't judge a book by its cover. That whole thing, like, really get to understand and who a person is, what drives them, what motivates them, who they are, what they're about, what they love, what excites them. Understand yourself from that perspective.
There's also a level of I think this one is like compassion, and starting to realize that like people are just people, and they're not perfect. Like, as much as you might see someone in a bar, you might see a woman in a bar, and like, I sit here as a regular guy, and I still all the things we talk of here is like things I still experience. You know, I'm still single and I still approach women in bars and clubs and other places that I frequent. And I still have to deal with the fear and the worry and feeling like they're better than me, or they're better looking than me, or that, you know, they're too busy to speak to me. But I'm able to kind of remind myself and being like, actually, I don't know her. Maybe she has her own shit going in her life, and actually go over with that idea of like, let me get to know who she is, because I don't know yet. Like, and have compassion for that. She's a human being and so am I. And let's see what happens there. And not kind of have this assumption of, you know, we said it before, of like, she's really attractive, so she's better than me, because that's not how.
Yeah.
That, you know, when it comes to looks, I find it interesting as well with when it comes to looks, is like we often look at ourselves and think we're not very good looking for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
But everyone feels this way.
Yeah.
You know, I know.
Especially people who are in the industry of looks, like whether they're models or makeup this or whatever that.
Yeah, or they feel they're being judged on their looks a lot. And, you know, ultimately, you know, in our society, I think it was still judging women very harshly. I don't say harshly, but just judging women a lot based on their looks. And that creates a huge anxiety for a woman.
Yeah, there's a really great TED talk. I can't remember the name of the person now, but she was a model, and she basically starts off by saying, hey, I won the genetic lottery. And that means that for my life, like, this is easy, that's easy, but then one of the things she points out is, if you want to meet some of the most like neurotic and insecure women in the world, come to a catwalk show and go into the changing room before they go on a catwalk, and that's where you'll find them. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit, like, wow, like, you know, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, but this, that. No, it's like you really start to realize that everyone has something that they're not happy with, whatever. And it's often the thing that you think they're the best at, actually. Yeah. Funny.
I remember years ago when we went out, I remember speaking to this girl in a club, and she was, you know, she was stunning. Like, you know, you look at her and imagine she's almost perfect. And we had a conversation. I remember the club and everything. It was our regular club we went to. And she was really just very gracious and just like very nice. And we talked for a while. And she was like, it's really nice just to have a normal conversation. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she was like to me that, she goes, most of the time guys come over and they're kind of like obviously hitting on her in some way. And she said, she was like, you know, you've just kind of come over and we've just been talking about our lives. I was like, yeah, and it really kind of struck me that as like, oh, wow, that's interesting, because, you know, a lot of men would think, okay, if I'm going to approach this woman, I have to know the perfect thing to say and my mindset, you know, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it's just another human being.
Yeah, and actually, they didn't mention it, but that was actually point number 5. To count that. But yeah, you don't actually have to know what you're going to say. And like I feel like I devised my own fail-safe way of like, we say approaching, right? But like starting conversations, essentially, to give it another name, another simpler way to understand what we're talking about. But yeah, starting a conversation with someone, and I'd say like often I would, or not just often, I found like the best way to start a conversation is to go with the first thing that came to my mind, whatever it may be. And people often worry because they have like weird thoughts or whatever, like, or it's something sexual or whatever, right? But in fact, in most cases, it's not. It's just like whatever is there for you, and it can actually be quite poetic. It could be this, it could be that, and going in with the unknown and starting a conversation that way, because you see, the first thing that comes to your mind is what's true. It's so true that it has an energy, it has a feeling, it has an emotion in it. So it doesn't matter if it's something that people say all the time. Like a lot of people ask, and I know this even without, you know, coaching for a while, they'll be like, oh, how do you start a conversation? What do I say? How do I start this? How do I get the number? How do I do this? So actually, you just speak your truth. You speak what's real. And this is what I was going to say earlier, in fact, like when we were talking about picturing the ideal outcome. If anyone's super, super nervous and they're like, fuck, I can never like picture the ideal outcome, I'm just too nervous. Like, one of the best things you can ever do, and you're going to feel really nervous after hearing me say this, but it's literally one of the best exercises that I did for myself, and it really helped me get a handle on just being real. And this is not going to get you like loads of dates. If you do get loads of dates off the back of it, amazing. But just to begin with, going over to someone you find attractive, whomsoever, wherever, and actually just saying exactly how you feel. Like, hi, my name is such. My name is Ahmad. My name is such and such. My name is Bob. But yeah, no. So hi, my name is Ahmad. I saw you. I think you're really attractive. I actually feel really nervous right now, but I had to come over and just say hello, and that's it. And I remember doing this, like, and the thing is, I didn't get great results, but nothing bad happened. Like, nothing exploded. No one slapped me in the face for that. No one laughed and giggled. I didn't wet my pants. Like, all those American movie style sequences. Nothing like that happened. But what it allowed for me was just to kind of be and express and just sink into my own who I am. And so not knowing, like you're saying, David, it's like that. I think is like one of the, like, that's like kind of another secret sauce. Like, it's like realizing that actually you just make it up, because a lot of us think we need to know exactly, and other people know exactly what they're saying. Like, I remember thinking to myself in the past, what is it that guys say when they're whispering in a girl's ear? Like, because that shit seems to really work. Like, whenever they're doing it, especially when I was like, not in the know, right? It's like, what are they saying? Because they lean over and they whisper, and the girl giggles, and you're like, I can't hear it. What is it? If I could hear it, I would write it down and I would say it aloud. Yeah, no, but what is it, Dave? What are they whispering?
I don't know. What are they whispering? I think one of the points I want to say here about what you say first is, like, have a think back to all the people that you've met in the last year of your life, right? And how many of them can you remember the first thing they said to you? Like, I mean, the very first thing, like, hi, da 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 da. Like, I don't remember. Like, I've been out and I've met women in various places in the last kind of 6 months, and I really can't tell you the first words we spoke. Okay. I probably can't tell you.
Can't tell you.
I really that I said or they said to me.
But there is this on that point. There is this thing in general about interactions where they say it's like an interaction sandwich. If you start well and you end well, then everything in the middle doesn't really like matter. And I think it's important that you express yourself in a particular way. Like I was talking to David about expression earlier. We almost did a podcast on that, on self-expression, how important it is in terms of attractiveness. And that is everything about, like, how you appear, how you come across, how you hold yourself, who you're with, what you're wearing. All of that is self-expression. So there is it's not to say like it's super duper important, but it kind of like, it starts things off. So the best way Dave and I used to, the way we actually really got connected after high school, because we weren't properly friends in high school, is that we used to go to these comedy shows. And you remember, it was like they had like this stand-up free.
It was a
open mic thing.
It was a drag. Yes,
it was an open mic thing. Oh yeah, there was
the drag queen.
Drag queen. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay, I almost said maybe a wrong thing there. I'm not sure. But one of the things is, like, whenever an act would come on the stage, you could pretty much tell if they were going to be good or bad just by how they walked on the stage. You almost like, oh fuck, like this is going to be another, like, a fucking hard 5 to 10 minutes now, like, just by the gait of their walk. And it's not to say now you need to go and focus on that, but what I'm saying is, like, it's interesting to be in who you are, not interesting in what you're saying. But to be like, oh, like, who I am and what I've got to say is cool, it's chill, I'm just going to go over and express myself.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a big thing about not needing to know and just being cool with that. Like, my recommendation is, and this is my personal, how I probably kind of approach women more than anything, is that I kind of go over and I say what I see. Like, I'm a very observant person, and I'm very happy to put very tenuous links together about things.
Can you give us an example? Say what you see. So I feel like it's a game with Dave. Dave, say what you see. We'll go out and play. I
feel like I'm really put on the spot and I'm scared. I might comment on, like, jewelry or something I like, or literally I might talk about handbags, or shoes or something like that. Actually, a really good example was, we were at that event a little while ago, a dating event, and there was a girl. You left for a while to go to the toilet, and there was a girl who came along and put a bag very close to where I was sitting, and I was like, she's doing that thing.
What's that thing?
Where they unnecessarily come and stand near you.
Oh yes, that thing.
I say they, women sometimes do this. Men do this too. Proximity, as we used to call it.
Oh yeah.
And she kind of put her head up and kind of looked around, and I was like, have you lost somebody? And all I was doing there was like observing what was occurring in front of me and commented upon it. That was quite an intelligent comment for me, because normally it would have been something far more ridiculous.
Like, duh.
Did you lose your cat?
Yeah. Well,
did you lose your husband?
that's equally good.
So I would say is like kind of trust in your creative ability.
Yeah, and actually just to go back on that point as well, it's like we used to play this game with coaching clients, especially when we had like group teachings, whatever, in the evening, and we would play the random word game. And we would literally just pick any fucking word. One of my favorites was pineapple, because in clubs, other than drinks, like there's no pineapples around.
Yeah.
And then so the task was they had to go over and start a conversation with someone with this random word, and it could be anything like cat clown or something like that. And amazingly, a lot of these people had some great fun and conversations, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that because it was so random, they had to continue. And I also think it's a big part of it was like, because it was so random, they had to be really creative, and the energy went into saying something like creative instead of worrying about the reaction they were going to get. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like so often men can feel like, and again, looking at other men who are good or successful, or women, it's presumed that they know what it is that they're doing. But actually, I think what the key lesson here is, no, they don't.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but they're just confident in creating, in storytelling. And they've done that by doing.
And experience. I think it's a big part of it. For me, like I look now, and a lot of around dating is just, for me, it's just purely experience. You know? Yeah. Like I've experienced enough of going out.
Experience points.
Yeah. And like speaking to women in places. It doesn't... Not to say like some of these things don't come up for me, like fear is something I really feel very much, like that fear of like not wanting to be talked to, or like, you know, being ignored or whatever. Like it really still comes up for me when I go and talk to people I don't know, men and women. But it's still knowing that like, oh, I can hold a conversation with people. That's fine. Like, I know I can hold a conversation, even if I have to speak 90% of that conversation myself. And you know what, guys, I would have to say that I personally, I know I can talk pretty much about anything if I have to, but at the same time, actually, I'm very comfortable not talking. I'm very comfortable. Like even at that event David was talking about earlier, I actually sunk into not talking, and I was quite happy not talking. It was predominantly, there was a lot of men there, and there were a few women. I wasn't really, I'm with someone, I'm not looking to spark something. I could just get into a conversation, but do you know what I did? I looked at the skyline. Because we were on a rooftop, and I was just like, oh, that's really nice. It's just like really nice. Going back to something else, and this is merging the final point with something else that was said. Like I was saying, like, having a good first impression, and I got a bit like lost in what I was actually saying to people, because on one hand I was like, it doesn't matter, on the other hand I was like, you need to make a good first impression. Well, this final point wraps it up nicely. What it's about, it's you know, doing the normal human thing of making a good first impression is smile and say hello. Yes. Like in whichever order it works for you. But you see, this is like, I mean, we actually got it written down as saying like when you're talking, which is actually an interesting way of putting it, because you can smile when you're talking, and it's not to like overly do this, right? But it's just like especially when you first meet someone, it's very disarming. And that's a good thing. Like disarming in a sense that you're smiling, you haven't come over to attack them. And it's surprising how often like men can look weird or concerned, and I get it. They're like anxious, or they're shy, or they're worried about the interaction, and they don't smile. And they go over and they're trying to start a conversation, and then they wonder why they're getting a bad reaction. It's like mostly it's just the whole body language and your face. It's like the way you're smiling. You're not, and like fast forward to where we are today, and we were talking about lifestyle and enjoying ourselves and just having fun. It's like, well, actually, we're just enjoying ourselves and having fun, so we're naturally smiling. We're not pretending. It doesn't have to be a pretense. If you actually like to go back to the point number 3, when you're like picturing the ideal outcome, like if that ideal outcome
is ideal, it would probably make you happy, and you'd probably be very happy.
Yeah.
And that's a really important factor, is to carry that. Like this is not a must or a should type thing, but it's like other people's reactions to you shouldn't be something that instructs you on how to be or guides you on how to be. Like, you should be happy. If someone doesn't want to talk, like, I'm reminded, I don't know if you remember this, like a friend of ours saying this when he first came to London, and he went around and he was in Leicester Square, and he went up to some girl and he said, "Hey, do you know where such and such club is?" And they were like, "Fuck off." and he was like, "Oh, I've never heard of that place." I was like, and it was just like bulletproof, like, in that sense. But because he's happy, and he's not expecting them to make him happy.
He's not expecting them
fill the hole,
to validate him as a human being.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing around the kind of smiling, say hello. Is a really an exercise I recommend to everybody. It's something I definitely did a lot a couple of years ago when I come back from my travels, was just smiling at people as I walk down the street. And I've really got into a habit of it now. Like, when I'm on the street, or I'm on the train, or I'm on the bus, or wherever I'm going, like, if I look at someone in the eye, I smile. Especially if I hold their eye contact for even, half a second, I just smile. It's become quite instinctive to me now. So I look at someone and I smile.
That's nice.
And it's quite interesting, because you start to realize that, if you smile at people, it's not what you think is going to happen. Because everyone has this idea in London. I imagine a lot of you live in big cities as well, is like, oh, if you smile at people, they think you're crazy. You know what? People smile at me all the time. That is my experience of life a lot of the time. People are smiling at me. And, like, I'm a big black man. People are naturally intimidated by me. Like, I am very aware of that. Maybe that's not so true, but I'm also aware that is the predominance for people. But I walk around and I'm smiling, and I smile at people and they smile back, and then I get smiles, and I'm like, sometimes I even get into random conversations with people, like through just, saying hello and how are you. But this point here about smiling and kind of just like letting that self-expression out and be with the people you meet will make such a difference to how your approach is going. And when I hate even the term approach, because it makes it feel quite cold and clinical, but you're going to speak to someone you don't know. It's worth, even if you really want to get into the research of it, and I know some of you guys are engineers, you love a bit of data analytics. Go and do some data collection where you speak to people and you smile, and you speak to people and you don't smile, and just take note of what you experience afterwards.
And a subset of that exercise, let's say this is a great exercise, because David and I were actually talking earlier, like, why is it that when he goes out, he attracts a lot of attention without actually doing much? And I think you pretty much just revealed it there. It's actually that you are open, you actually are connecting with people, you're making eye contact, and you're smiling without having to say any words. Just the act of looking around and smiling is actually a very rare thing. And I know for myself, I don't necessarily do it. I tend to smile to myself. I'm tend to just be happy in my own world, doing my own thing. I'm like that. Like, and for me, like, that's pretty cool. But it's really interesting just hearing that experience, because it's like, it's like whenever we're talking to people, often we're smiling. Yeah. I was even told by someone recently, like, the way that I laugh is very indicative of someone that laughs a lot. Like, because some people, and we don't even realize, that we have an ease of laughing and enjoyment, whereas some people have a stifled. So that's like Beavis and Butthead.
It was that laugh we let out earlier.
So yeah, I think that's a really cool exercise, is to develop what David just expressed there, as around looking at people, connecting, making eye contact, and smiling. And something that I experienced, and just a little giveaway, a little cheat, is that when you first start making eye contact with people in general, if you're not used to doing this, one thing you're going to notice very quickly is that people don't make eye contact. Yeah. It's like you think you're not making eye contact. A lot of people look away, or just are not looking. Yeah. They're not making eye contact.
And people are really scared to make eye contact. It's a really interesting, like, a thing I've observed is, and I do it with men and women, and old people, young people, whoever, like, we all mix. I find the people who will make eye contact with you the most is little children.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, yeah, cool, what's up? What do you want to say? They literally look at you and they're like, oh, you're looking at me? Are you going to say something?
Yeah.
And And sometimes, you know, if it's like I was next to a young girl yesterday on the tube, and she must have been about 5 or 6, and she kind of looked up at me, and I smiled and I waved, and then she waved back, and then she looked at her mum, and her mum kind of reaffirmed that it was safe for her to look. You know, that whole kind of pattern. But you're like, free like a child. Be free like a child to just look and smile at people and interact, because you may find, and I've found this, is that people are dying to have to smile at one another and to have that eye contact connection, like in just a very casual manner. You smile, eye contact, you smile, and then go about the rest of your business.
I think you could have just changed the world there, Dave, with that piece of advice. Like literally wake up tomorrow and helicopters are falling out of the sky and just people are happy and shit, like, because everyone's just making eye contact and smiling now.
Smiling.
Yeah. Amazing. My laptop has just died. So that was the final point anyway.
Thank God.
Yeah. Thank God. And King Laddu.
And thank God my laptop has not died.
Yeah. Well, you've got the thing plugged in.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up there. We've given you an exercise.
We have.
We've given you loads of exercises, you know, just to kind of go over the points we did today. You know, it's not assuming that a woman doesn't want to talk to you. So that's just in kind of creating an ideal outlook for how you want your interaction to go. You know, this can be any interaction. Like what we're saying here is around kind of approaching for the purpose of dating and going home together, whatever it may be, getting phone numbers, whatever. But you can apply this to every aspect of your life. You can apply this to work, to meetings, to everything. Is going in with a positive outlook of how it's going to turn out and kind of holding that in your mind. The next point also is to kind of realize that fear doesn't have to stop you. You know, there's a great book that I remember reading years and years ago, and everyone in the PUA world was reading it. It was like, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Oh, was that a book that everyone read?
Yeah, it was.
So I think that was literally the first ever self-development book I ever read. And I discovered it by accident. Yeah, I was in Wanstead, and I was walking down the street, and there was 2 girls sitting at a table, and I saw them, and I was like, I want to go and talk to them, and I didn't. And instead I went to the local library and looked for books in self-development and feel the fear and do it anyway. I was like, yeah, that seems like it's good.
That's really, the book I need.
That could help me right now. And I literally consumed that book in one evening. It's not a very big book.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Susan Jeffers.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, good memory.
Yeah.
And realize that you're going out. You next point is kind of going over. If you're going to speak to a woman, you're going there to find out who she is and how she is, and not assume that she's better than you because she's better looking than you think you are, and so forth. You're adding that value to them. And the next point is not being obsessed with knowing exactly what to say when you go over, because this is just very unnecessary. And our last and final point is to smile, you know, when you start speaking, and just smile at the world. And we have loads of exercises in there and so forth. Do we have any final exercises?
No. Well, actually, one more exercise that I highly recommend is heading over to the subscribe button and hitting that and reviewing and giving us a 5-star rating. Don't give us a 4-star rating. If you want to give us a 4-star rating, just don't do it. Just do it with a 5.
No, because you know it was good stuff. You know it was gold. Like, you know, we're trying to put out great content for people to consume and enjoy.
We're doing it, man. We're doing it.
Okay,
We're doing it. We're putting out
I'm putting that negative vision out.
Yeah.
But I'd say that if you're listening to this episode, imagine that approaching for you is something that's quite daunting and scary. And I'll give you the exercise I used to give with my coaching clients. And as you kind of stagger it, right? So you start off by, if you want to start really low, you just start off by saying hello to some people. And this might just be you're standing at a bus stop or you're standing at some traffic lights, and you turn to someone, smile and say hello, and then keep going about your business. And you do that 5 times, and then you work up to asking someone for the time. You can even drop in, I've left my phone at home, and you know, I need to be somewhere, like what's the time, and ask them that. And you're just getting used to approaching random people, and this is obviously like in the streets or so forth. And then you kind of work up to your directions. You know, I'm looking for this place, this pizza place. Do you know anywhere nearby? And you start to see that people will stop for you and listen to you and talk to you, and they don't think anything of what you're asking. You're asking for a request. And then you can build that up actually to kind of, you know, compliments of women that you meet and asking for phone numbers. And if you really want to take it that far, you can take it to the examples that Ahmad gave earlier. But this will slowly build your confidence in speaking to strangers. But the key would be is to really keep in mind the points that we listed there, especially around kind of keeping a positive vision.
And just a final point, if you're in London, then we are now running meetups. You can find it on meetup.com. It's called our particular meetup on meetup.com is Meetup with the Authentic Dating series. And we'll be holding regular meetups on there. So you can join, you can catch up with us, bring your questions. And yeah, we'd love to meet you face to face. And that's it from us. Actually, well, no, there's also, you can find us on Instagram at Authentic Dating Series. We're constantly posting
positive dating content.
Yeah, and also we're getting into some longer articles now, and videos. So yeah, there's lots of great content there as well. So look forward to seeing you on Instagram and on the meetup if you're in London. But otherwise, we'll see you again next week on the podcast.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.